Adventures in South America with a familiar cast of characters. We start in Buenos Aires, sprawling metropolis with 400 years of history. It is a city with an attitude. It is cosmopolitan and seductive, but also arrogant and frustrating. Avenida del Libertador runs 1 block away from our hotel, which is located in Retiro. This tower should remind you of London. It is a smaller version of Big Ben, a gift from the Englishman to the city of Buenos Aires. Plaza San Martin slopes downward towards the tower. Among the greenery of shady trees, there is a memorial to the young men fallen in the Falklands War, known here as Malvinas. The upper part of the Plaza San Martin is surrounded by impressive public buildings. French architect Carlos Tay is responsible for their design. In the center of the plaza, the obligatory equestrian statue of José San Martín, country's liberator. This is an old building of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs purchased by the government in 1936. Since modern La Cancilleria was built right across the street as a new seat of the ministry, the old palace became a museum of opulence. Another homage to opulence is the entrance to the city racetrack, Hippodrome Argentino. Along the main city drag, Avenida 9 de Julio, Teatro Colón occupies an entire block. It is one of the most prominent landmarks in this city. 7 stories high, it can accommodate 2,500 spectators. It is a world-class home of the classical music, opera, and ballet with amazing acoustics. Plaza de Mayo is an important gathering place. Protests and marches of all kinds of causes take place right here. It is surrounded by historical and administrative landmarks like Pyramid de Mayo, commemorating country's independence from Spain. Statue of General Belgrano pays homage to the heroes of the war for the independence. On the western side of the plaza sits a mid-18th century building called Cabildo, with a lovely colonnade. This is an old city hall that remembers 19th century British invasions. The entire east side of the plaza is taken up by Casa Rosada, the Pink House. Casa Rosada houses the office of the president. From these balconies, Juan and Eva Perón preached their populist message to the crowd of Argentinians below. This solemn neoclassical building is the Metropolitan Cathedral, finished in 1827. The interior is spacious and adorned with a Rococo altar and Baroque details. It is also a national historical site where Argentina's most revered hero, General San Martín, is buried. Like any other old and graceful city, Buenos Aires has many large parks where local flora is abundant. Araucaria native evergreen plant is sprouting new branches. Cockspur coral, with beautiful carmine blooms, is Argentina's national tree. This giant Moreton Bay fig offers shade to tired pilgrims to Recoleta Cemetery. After a restful break, it is time to go shopping. Along Avenida Cordoba and Florida is where we hunt for bargains. At the intersection, the traditionally looking building of Galerías Pacífico houses inside a modern, sprawling mall. Decorated inside with frescoes reminiscent of social realism. one wonders about the heritage of the Perón era. The bus on Avenida Libertador takes us northeast to Barrio Belgrano. On Plaza Belgrano, the Church of Immaculate Conception is shaped like a basilica, and it has an impressive dome. Its popular name is La Redonda. Across the plaza, this neoclassical building houses the Museum of Spanish Art, the purpose of our trip. Unfortunately, it is closed for no apparent reason. This is a very common sight in the parks and green spaces of Buenos Aires. With the country's unemployment at 7.5%, there are many professional dog walkers. And with these many canines and only 2 hens, you need to know what you're doing. Residents of Buenos Aires and city fathers alike have a penchant for erecting monuments or statues in every park and on every square in the city. Ancient, modern, commemorative, symbolic, and whimsical monuments abound. This is Floralis generica by Eduardo Catalano, the giant flower whose petals close every night. Early 18th century white colonial church of Nostra Senora de Pilar is located adjacent to one of the most important city landmarks, Cementerio de la Recoleta. It is a truly unique place, Stone City of the Dead. You can wander for hours and get lost among the countless streets lined with expressive statues and marble sarcophagi. Here rests the elite of the city. Past presidents, influential politicians, national heroes, or just plain rich and notorious. Evita Perón's resting place always has fresh flowers. At the end of the cemetery tour, we realized that it is November 1st, All Saints' Day. A traveling group from Chilean Andes chose the cemetery to pay homage to their ancestors. Today we're heading to La Boca, the rough, blue-collar part of town where tango was born. In the early 19th century, many Spanish, Polish, and Italian immigrants settled in La Boca. They found employment in processing, packing, and shipping of Argentinian beef for export. They built their homes out of corrugated metal siding and painted them with whatever paint was left over after sprucing up the shipping barges. Unwittingly, they gave La Boca its unique character. El Caminito was once the most dangerous and notorious street of this barrio, lined with eateries, bars, bordellos, and dance halls. Behind these walls, in dark, smoky rooms, tango was born and evolved into a national pastime. Today, La Boca is still the rough-and-tumble neighborhood, but one where busloads of camera-laden tourists crowd the narrow streets. They eat and drink local wines and buy trinkets at the souvenir shops. Buenos Aires is trying to be everything to everyone who visits. Hence, it's full of contrasts. This is the newest and the most hip barrio in Buenos Aires, Puerto Madero. Once an old waterfront, it has been converted to luxury high-rises, artsy lofts, offices, high-end restaurants, in other words, an upscale neighborhood of expensive real estate. It is November, an early spring in these parts. After a late Sunday lunch, we enjoy afternoon promenade along the water and a beautiful sunset. Just like any other metropolis, Buenos Aires aspires to be the home of important and extensive art collections. National Museum of Art is the main attraction. Many Argentinian artists of the 19th and 20th century were educated in Europe, and their works reflect major European art trends. We found here key works of local artists: Benito Quinquela Martín, Zul Solar, and Eduardo Sivori, as well as European masters such as Degas, Picasso, Van Gogh, and Rembrandt. Museo de Arte Latinoamericano houses predominantly works of Latin American artists. The building is an airy, modern fusion of glass, steel, and white marble. In the main hall, Zosha is truly excited by the size of an egg I laid. Further inside, there is a fine collection of contemporary art on display. Argentina's Zul Solar and Antonio Berni are represented, as well as Fernando Botero, Frida Kahlo, and Diego Rivera. Buenos Aires is a metropolis of many distractions. We found Argentinian red wine, especially Malbec from Mendoza, much better than famous Argentinian beef. And pastries and desserts, irresistibly delicious. But then there was tango, that 100 years ago took hold of this country and had never let go. Café Tortoni is Buenos Aires' another landmark. The story of the café dates back to the 19th century and two Frenchmen fond of the fin de siècle decor. As the fame of the café grew, everybody who was anybody in Buenos Aires frequented the place. Visiting celebrities included Arthur Rubinstein, Albert Einstein, Federico García Lorca, and Hillary Clinton. We also stopped by for an obligatory churros and chocolate, but the music led us to the cellar for another taste of tango, the dance that blends the passion, machismo, and longing into art. Rancho of Don Silvano is located 70 miles southwest of Buenos Aires. His rancho is out in the Pampas, vast, empty plains, flat and grassy. Like everything else, Pampas bloom in the spring. Don Silvano raises cattle. Beef exports are Argentina's main industry. He also raises and trains horses needed to herd and drive his cattle. He employs several gauchos, who are Argentinian version of cowboys. Whatever gauchos are lacking in table manners, they make up in their riding skills. During our stay, we became close friends with Gaucho named Bruno and with his horse called Numero Uno. Approximately in the center of South American continent, where borders of three nations come together, nature puts on a show so spectacular that it defies description. Divided between Argentina and Brazil, 3 kilometers long chain of waterfalls plunges 80 meters from the edge of the basalt plateau. The raw power of tons of rushing white water and an overwhelming noise provide one-of-a-kind, visceral experience. Before the plateau ends abruptly, Iguazu River forms a wide, shallow delta and divides into many channels. When it jumps off the edge, it forms hundreds of distinct cascades. From the Argentinian side, you can take the upper trail, which consists of a variety of boardwalks, bridges, overlooks, and paths along the upper edge of the plateau. This trail gives you an up-close view, the most intimate experience of the falls. From this cauldron, smoke-like plume rises visible for miles away. It is Gargantuan del Diablo, Devil's Throat. Deafening cascade of water plunges down to an invisible destination, maybe all the way to hell. Lowell Trail descends to the Iguazu River. There, at the small platform, you can board a boat. Prepare yourself for getting thoroughly wet while examining the falls up close from the bottom.
¿Alguien más?
Here is our soft porn and the proof that we had actually made it through the waterfall and are completely wet. Guess whose wet bum this is? On the Brazilian side, the views are different. Except for a few places, there is more distance between the paved trails and the falls. From a vantage point, we can see all: the falls, the jungle, and the river. For the first time, we are far enough to see a rainbow in the rising water vapor. The trail ends under the majestic San Floriano Cascade, which provides a healthy shower to everyone who visits. If you're willing to take your eyes off the water, you will notice that we're surrounded by South American rainforest, which is teeming with unique flora and fauna. Be quiet and listen. The jungle will talk to you. High temperatures, humidity, and rainfall support a widely diverse habitat. In top canopy alone, 200 species of trees between 30 and 40 meters high, and down below, 2,000 species of different plants, countless varieties of mushrooms, fruits, and flowers. This is called a lobster claw ginger. And here is a sampling of butterflies. And just a few of the 400 species of birds. First, we took pictures of the birds in the wild, but later, fascinated by their variety, we visited an aviary. Local lizards also willingly posed for photos. And now about native mammals we met face to face. Pardon me, these mammals are not native. These relatives of raccoons are called coati. Like their cousins, very resourceful and persistent. Also capuchin monkeys in large groups or solitary. There are many species of mammals we were not interested to meet face to face. Tapirs, jaguars, pumas, and snakes, of which there are about 30 different varieties. We are back in Buenos Aires discussing adventure plans for the next day. Spirits are up, thanks to the bottle of white, kept on ice. Colonia del Sacramento in Uruguay is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a picturesque settlement established in the 17th century by the Portuguese. It is an oldest city in Uruguay, with armed gates, defense walls, sycamore-lined cobblestone streets, and miniature houses. Old world charm aplenty. Almost every street ends with a view of Rio de la Plata and offers views of incredible sunsets. The strategic location of the settlement provoked repeated battles between Portugal and Spain over its ownership. In the 18th century, Spaniards finally won. In the center of Barrio Histórico on Plaza des Armas, you can walk on raised paths to examine uncovered foundations of the original Portuguese houses. On the same plaza, the oldest church in Uruguay, begun by the Portuguese, twice demolished and rebuilt by the Spaniards. Surrounding the plaza and neighboring streets, old buildings were refurbished and converted to restaurants and galleries to accommodate throngs of tourists. Away from the center and all the tourist traps, on narrow sunny lanes, we are looking for a suitable place for lunch. It seems we found it, an outdoor cafe which is much more interesting inside. I hope the food is as good as the interior decor is intriguing. After lunch, a walk to the old harbor is a great way to exercise. Tomorrow, we move on to the capital of Montevideo. The capital of Uruguay greets us with overcast skies and a drizzle, but we continue according to our plan, beginning with the downtown called El Centro. Plaza Independencia commemorates the independence hero José Artigas, with an equestrian statue and a subterranean Mausoleo de Artigas. On the side of the plaza, 19th century neoclassical Palacio Esteves was designed and built to serve as a working space for the president and his administration. The bureaucracy grew at the speed that outpaced any expectations, and this executive tower had to be built to provide the sitting room for all the bureaucrats. The south corner of the plaza is occupied by one of the city's architectural landmarks, Palacio Salvo. Designed by Mario Plant, an Italian immigrant, as a hotel, it was finished in 1928. Unfortunately, it was never used as a hotel. Just steps from Plaza Independencia, elegant Teatro Solís is capital's largest and most modern stage. Built in 1856, it was recently renovated. A short drive to northeast through bustling commercial district leads to where on a modest hill sits Palacio Legislativo. What started as a 3-story neoclassical project ended up as a wedding cake, intricately cut into 52 different kinds of granite and marble. It is a seat of the Uruguayan legislature. There are many public green spaces in Montevideo, and many local artists exhibit their work there. 2 monumental sculptures by Jose Belloni both pay homage to pioneers who colonized Uruguay. One features oxen, the other horses. Here, the artist Edmundo Prati commemorates Charrúa people, the native tribe practically extinct, who used to inhabit this area for 1600 years. Since their massacre in 1831, Uruguay is the only Latin American country without the indigenous population. Southwest flank of the city, facing Rio de la Plata, has the best beaches in town. We are driving to Playa Positos, modern residential beachfront community. In this neighborhood, high-rise apartments with views of the river resemble Miami and go for $500,000 and up. The oldest part of the city, Ciudad Vieja, is of course next to the harbor. Here, the refurbished wrought iron structure of Mercado del Puerto is a true landmark. It shelters a myriad of bustling parrillas, steak restaurants. Meat is king here. The place is especially lively and colorful in the afternoon and evening. Local artists and craftspeople show off their wares, and gangs of musicians hang out. Ciudad Vieja is the most intriguing part where the city had begun. Colonial and Art Deco buildings compete for space, and ones that have been renovated look splendid. However, most tourists and visitors from cruise ships keep to the main streets and a few souvenir shops. Going further into narrow alleys does not seem appealing.
Ha nacido un sentimiento que me lleva a comprender el reflejo de tu alma preparada a conceder.
It is an impoverished area. The boarded-up storefronts of the historic buildings and presence of motorized police are a fair warning. Too bad. The area has such a potential.